got.
You are now watching Expert's Corner on the DML Network.
Welcome into the DML Network and another episode of Expert's Corner. It's the first one for 2019, so I had to get a special guest to come on the show, and we got a blast from the past. It's the lead developer for Access Football, JD Richards. What's going on, JD?
Not much, man. I'm glad to be back. I didn't know it was the first one of the year, man. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, dude, you're the first one of 2019. Couldn't have a better guy to jump on the show. We got a lot to talk about because a lot has been going on. Access Football has been working on top of everything else that's going on in the personal life. Had a new baby. At the end of last year, I see so many pictures on the Twitter. Like your Twitter feed is blowing up with the baby pictures. I only got 5 on it, but I love the camo with him in the front. Yeah, that was clean. I like that.
I use it, man. I walk him around the store. He's too big now. He's 5 months, so he's damn near 20 pounds. He's huge.
Oh man, congrats on the new baby. But let's talk Access Football. All right, so console drops for the Xbox.
Yep.
But PlayStation is still waiting.
Yeah.
What is holding PlayStation up from us seeing Access Football on the PlayStation Store?
Yeah, so, understanding what Access is, we were a PC development company. We made our game on the PC. Everybody develops their game on the PC. And then they have to port over to the consoles. And so for us, Xbox is like, from going from PC to Xbox, because it is a Windows-based platform, it was like 1A to 1B. It was almost like the smoothest transition we could have asked for. And then when we we finished Xbox, passed, got on the marketplace, then we moved on to PlayStation because we only have one guy working on console certs. He can only do so much at one time. And so when we ported over to PlayStation, we kept getting a bunch of errors coming back. And then we'd solve those errors, send it in for cert, and then they'd give more errors, errors that they wouldn't find in the initial report. And then there was a cloud saving issue that really put us behind on the release because we couldn't figure it out, and we were at the mercy of developers telling us, hey, this is the solutions that worked for these people having this problem. And then we just kept we're still getting kickbacks, hey, here's an ad that we didn't find before, take it out, and then so we had Danny doing the certs, then we moved those assets, the dev kit, over to Dave. Now Dave's handling it, and Dave's been awesome, and he's crushing it. But again, one man, and he's at the mercy of PlayStation approving it. And so we'll keep resubmitting it. Once it comes out, if people support it, great. I get the people who are saying, nope, I'm not supporting it because, they didn't get it out on time. I totally get it. And I'm not asking for mercy from anybody because we deserve everything, every backlash we get. And we're just glad people are keeping an eye on us, good, bad, whatever, thank you and sorry.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you had plans to have it out, and then, you got to go through this process. It's not, it's not.
It was our first year,
and it's not like you talked about, with Xbox and with your game for the PC, it was such an easy port to go from the PC to just really plug and play in the Xbox. And so that was there. But, Sony has such a different regiment. They expect something different when you try to port it over to them. So you got to go through that process. And then again, what people got to understand is Access Football is not in this big, huge warehouse with 340 employees that everybody can take a different thing and say, okay, I'm going to fix this, and then I'm going to send it back to the lead developer. Here it is. It's one guy that's trying to take all of this kickback from Sony and say, okay, I got to fix everything one thing at a time. I'll fix this. Okay, that's done. Fix this. And so when do you expect PlayStation to see Access Football available?
So Dave's had the kit now for about 2 weeks, and Like I was telling you in the pre-call, we're shaking off the holidays and the New Year's, and everybody's got, their full-time jobs and lives going on. So that's obviously slowing us down. Dave recently submitted the build last week. We got an error report back, and we're hammering through those. So we should be submitting a new build to PlayStation every week until they approve it and put it on the store. But as far as like the way Access is structured, you're right. We're not in a warehouse. We're all satellite employees. We do everything through Dropbox, GitHub, and stuff like that. But we're all working out of our houses or closets or wherever we're at.
Right.
And so, we've got Danny working on 2019. We have Dave patching and fixing 2018. And then you have, me trying to track down sponsors and stuff like that, and trying to develop, the direction of the game. And then we have Joe working on graphics and skins and teams. And then we hired 2 new guys. One's working on the player models that I'm slowly teasing on social media and giving people access to. And he's doing a great job. And then we just hired a guy last weekend who's going to be coming on and working on our stadiums and overhauling that. So we're growing, but we're all satellite. And then, it's slow, man. I would say every month, maybe our hardcore guys are hitting 40 hours a month, not a week. That's a whole month. And that's just because we all have full-time jobs and responsibilities that we have to take care of before we get to the Access stuff.
Yeah. And it's what is the main point as far as people don't understand how dedicated this team is to Access? It's not like this group is sitting back and saying, oh, I got an hour here or there. I guess I'll work on some Access stuff.
Yeah.
But how dedicated this team is to not only putting out a game, but putting out a great football game that guys are going to want to pick up time and time again and play a franchise mode that they can't get anywhere else.
I think I give consumers a lot of slack, right? Because it's their hard-earned money. A lot of people work probably harder than us to make less than us, right? And so, you got guys, working fast food that just want to play a football game. When they get home off, covered in grease and flipping burgers and taking everybody else's crap, they just want to play a good football game. And right now, there isn't a good football game on the market. And I'll be real, Access has its flaws. We're not for everybody. In fact, we're probably not for a lot of people at the moment. Madden, right now, it's good for a lot of people, but it's bad for a lot of people. So there's just not a one game fits all on the market.
Right.
And I think Canuck Plays stepped up and they're trying to fill some shoes, and they have their shortcomings. We've stepped up and tried to fill some shoes. We have our shortcomings. Madden's neglected shoes and they have their shortcomings, but the consumer is to blame, right? Because they are what they pay for, and they pay for Madden, so Madden does what Madden will do. We go where we hear the echoes. If nobody's filling that space, we try to fill it. Right now, for us, that's franchise mode. Nobody's really filling that area. And so we're putting a lot of eggs in that basket trying to develop it. But with that, we're still developing our gameplay. Same with Canuck Play. They're listening for echoes. Okay, where did Madden go? Where is Access going? Okay, so now they're going. Apparently they're going to go hardcore on the college thing, and good for them. And you see that their social media and everything's lit up with the progress that they're making. And so we as developers can only go where you guys guide us, and we can only go at the speed that you push us. And if you're not spending money on us, you can't expect us to spend money or more money, right? Like, we can't go faster than the horses are pulling us. And if we don't have the money and we can't afford to push harder, then you're going to be at our pace. And so to answer your initial question, because I went off on a tangent there, we're dedicated. We're lucky enough that the people we've brought on believe in the product that we're making. They believe in themselves, We've got guys, the two new guys we've brought in have worked on some really big projects in the past, and we're talking like Disney like stuff in the past. Wow. And they've believed in our product enough to say, hey, we're going to accept this style of payment, and we're going to bet on this game. And to me, that's flattering and also humbling that people are willing to put their sweat into the game, and that's how they're going to make their money. And so I don't know if I answered your initial question.
Yeah. Hey, and that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that are buying into this. And so that's got to speak volumes for what Access Football has started. And that's really where you're at. You're at the beginning of it. Yes, Access Football has been out on the PC. You can get it on the App Store on your phone. But to the console, this is the beginning. Access Football 18 for Xbox. You've seen the results of that. And you talked about it already. You guys are already working on 19.
Yeah.
Trying to get that. We're going to see it on Xbox, definitely.
I think every studio, as soon as they release, they're thinking about the next cycle. And for me, a guy that's not very technically skilled, like I do very minimal coding. I don't do any of the animations. I don't do any of the graphics. So for me, I'm always thinking about the next release. And Danny and Dave are always cleaning up 2018 and then they eventually get their minds around to start thinking about 19. But I mean, it's just one of those things that, for 2018, we released late because we were fixing issues so long on 2017. Then, we made a concerted effort. Okay, we're never going to do that again. We're going to spend 2 months fixing crap, and then we're going to move on, But obviously we haven't, because we're still working on PlayStation and stuff several months later. But eventually we'll get into the cycle where we finish the release, we fix, issues as they arise, and we patch them, but we will also be building towards the next cycle too. So,
all right, one last question in the first segment. So what has the feedback been so far from the Xbox side for Access 2018?
So the major feedback is that our game does not perform well. And the whole reason behind it is because our models, both stadium and player models, are not efficient. So what's happening is people who aren't playing on the X, and even the ones who are playing on the X, have to play on a generic stadium, things that we packaged in 2017 as our hot fix. Like, hey, we understand that our stadiums are inefficient. We understand our models are inefficient. And so because we don't rely on animations to run our game, when the game lags, the players lag, and you'll get incomplete passes because your players won't go to the ball, and so that's been basically gameplay and graphics have been the big issue. So what we've done to fix that, our current model that's in 2018 is using a ridiculous amount of resources. One model is about 10 times more than what it should be. Times that by 22, plus players on each sideline, and you get some really bloated gameplay. Our stadiums, not necessarily well mapped out, not necessarily the most efficient they could be. We're using 3D grass. Yes, we're culling it, but we're still rendering 3D grass. So the guy we brought in to work on stadiums, he's working on a more efficient solution for the grass. And so the biggest feedback is like, hey, franchise is cool, still pretty bare bones. We appreciate where you're building. We see where it's going. Cool. Gameplay fucking sucks. And they're right. Anytime you're lagging hardcore and you have an Xbox X and you're having troubles playing the game, something's wrong. And they're right, and so 2019 will not have these issues, guaranteed, because we've already addressed it. We've already seen where the problems were, and we've already fixed it. So 2018 people won't see that, but 2019 will.
All right, and that brings us to the next segment. What is new for Access Football? You tweeted out the other day you got some new technology for Access Football. So what did y'all buy, and how is that going to play into the role of Access going forward?
Yeah, so we've looked at our options. Obviously gameplay is a big deal, and part of that gameplay is animations. And before that, we had used a studio, Iron Belly, that they're pretty inflexible. They don't really work with us post. Here's your assets, run with it. And the problem when you subcontract out to studios and then the studio turns around and subcontracts that out, is there's a lot of middlemen involved, and there's a lot of people, and getting like, for example, when we found the model was grossly inefficient, we go back to Iron Belly, they go back to the artist says they're not working on it anymore. So then Iron Belly's like, well, what do we do, because we just middlemanned it out. And so then we get stuck with a bloated model. Well, now we said, okay, well, we're going to hire our own guy, and he's going to build it, and when there's issues, he'll fix it. And then main goal was just, we're going from 15. If I'm telling you the number's 10 to 15 and we're getting it down to 4 or 5, like, that should just tell you like how much more efficient it's going to be. So the mocap suit, the biggest thing was gameplay. We realized that, we realized, well, you can't really jump. There's not jump balls. There's, jumping over linemen to get into the end zone. There's not, some of this shit is soccer animations. Quarterback releases kind of suck. Blocking sucks. D-line, O-line interactions suck. So we're just like, okay. So we said, how do we fix that? And so we started looking at mocap studios, similar to what Canuck Play did. And we were like, wow, this is kind of inefficient, right? Like, you're renting studio space. So we said, screw it. We're going to become our own motion capture studio. And then maybe, we'll start selling some of our assets that we make in-house. So we bought our own motion capture system. It's on its way now from Europe. We've got our own library that we have access to, that we can build from, add to, sell from. So our goal is to really just go in depth and position by position, and just try to get as much motion capture data as we can, and put as much of that into the game as we can. And then we're working on a new kinetic engine that'll use these animations and give you a more fluid, realistic look. Because right now the kinetic engine we're using was built for something else, and so you're getting some wonkiness. The player model's kind of rigged weird, and it's creating some wonkiness. So we're really just overhauling how the model is, how the rigging is, and how those two interact with the data that we're going to be capturing for the motion. And so every year, obviously, that'll get better. And so we're working on some bigger things with some bigger entities, as far as like who's going to be capturing that data. And then worst case, I've played college football, so I'll just go back and do it myself. Worst case scenario, if everything falls through, I will be capturing that data. So.
JD in the suit, running around, blocking people and catching passes and throwing the ball.
Hey, man, I did it, man. I did it. Division in AIA, but still college ball.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, you talked about bringing a couple new guys into the team. Yep. Last time we talked, I believe you had 5 guys on the team that were working, and now you're up to 7. And you talked a little bit about, each guy has their own area of expertise of what they're trying to do. So the first guy you brought on really is that player model kind of guru that's going to get in there and make these player models to the level that, guys are looking at when they see maybe in a Madden game. Now we got to remember, we're not comparing apples to apples at this point. Madden's been around for a long time. They're in that big, huge warehouse with all these employees working on their game. But now you got a guy that's specifically focused to make the player model look like a real football player. How much is that going to improve Access football? Because, that was some of the feedback you got, was how it looked graphically, where now you got a guy that's going to go in there and say, okay, we're going to make the helmet look good. And you put the helmet on Twitter the other day, just looked amazing. So how is that going to play a role going forward with Access football?
Well, I think people have to realize, like, when you look at Madden, even from the normal perspective, like, you only see how great Madden is during cutscenes, right? Because then they go in, they play the cutscene, and you're like, wow, these are beautiful, right? But when you're in the game, you're zoomed out, and so those are lower count models that you're looking at, and that's kind of where we're at, right? So we're trying to create more cutscenes. We're hoping to develop instant replay and allow you guys to zoom in and see how great the model actually is. But from a gameplay perspective, you're not going to notice, right? Until you zoom in on replay or see a cutscene, you're not going to notice how great the model actually is. And so it is better, but I think people will notice that it's more from a resource perspective, and the game will run much smoother and much cleaner. The animations and rigging will be much cleaner, and we'll be able to adjust on the fly. Like if people say, that arm's a little short or too long or too wide or too thin, then those are things that we can adjust, whereas before we couldn't. Like I said, Iron Belly controlled our destiny on that old player model, and we couldn't do anything about it. But now we are free, and we are making our own crap, and it's going to be way more exciting.
Yeah, and it's going to look a lot better, especially when it's in-house, and you have that open communication with just a team member that you can pick the phone up with and say, hey, man, this is what I see. Can we make this adjustment? That's so important when it's in-house. And then you talked about now you're bringing on this next guy for stadiums. So what is the plan for stadiums? Because right now it's so generic, but what is the plan going forward to make stadiums an important piece of access?
Yeah, so we're tying stadiums into the franchise mode, and that's kind of where, and we'll talk about that in the final segment, so I won't dive too deep into it here, but we have phases that we're trying to hit, right? So we have the current phase, and we're not going to leave this phase until we feel like we've accomplished it. The current phase is develop the franchise mode and prove the gameplay. Once we feel like we have exhausted both of those, then we'll move into the second phase of our plan. But we're not going to leave that phase. We're not just going to leave it until we feel like we've done something meaningful and lasting there. And we just don't feel like we've accomplished that yet. So we're stuck. We're stuck until we get it right. But right now, that means, franchise mode's got to get deeper. It's got to be more meaningful. Right now, there's a lot of hidden crap in there that you can't see. And you're just like, why is this guy not progressing like the others? And had we been able to flesh out scouting more, you would have seen that he was a bust, right? But because it was kind of, my grand idea, we just, again, one person working on that, you can only go as fast as the horses pull. So, there's a lot of things that we want to flesh out and get fixed. And we feel like this is the year that we're actually going to get it done. But we'll see, day by day, month by month, cycle by cycle. Yeah. And we're not going to leave this phase until that. So the guy coming on to do stadiums, the number one thing is that he's working on first is fixing our 3D grass. It cannot be 3D. It's just too taxing on the system. So he's got a really good idea to fix it, and we think it's going to be great, and we think it's going to be exactly what we need. Next thing he's going to do is fix the spectators, because our spectators kind of suck. They're really inefficient. And everything, the name of the game for him is efficiency. And then when those two tasks are done, we're moving into giving each of the 36 teams a unique identity, because when a player enters the franchise, they can either take over an identity, or for future releases, they'll make their own entity. And that's kind of where we're heading, right? So they'll be able to jump in a suite, and every user will have to start in tier 3 and work their way up. So resources and coaching staffs will be super limited. They'll have to make some crucial decisions on roster and staff. They'll have to design their stadium, and that's the grand scheme of where we're heading. So every unique base team will have their own stadium, but we also want to give users a Madden 08-esque stadium builder where they can piece together their stadium. And not only that, but we want to make it to where the stadium evolves with the franchise. So let's say you have like you'll start in Division 3, which is almost like minor league ball, essentially. You may have a small college-like stadium, but as you go through, make more money, climb tiers, win more championship game money, you can build onto, and it will reflect in game. So not only will you get like a stub hub look of your stadium and see that it's a small bowl, but then you add on another piece. That piece will then show up in game too. So your stadium will be living with your franchise, and it'll be something that the player has to be accountable for both building, maintaining. If you have a Division 1 stadium and you fall all the way to Division 3, well, you're probably going to go bankrupt pretty quick. So
trying to pay for it.
Don't suck and make smart decisions, I guess.
All right, last segment, and this is the most exciting one.
Yeah.
It's the future of access football.
Yeah.
Looking back to where you started from, and where you've come all the way to this point. I don't really think people understand the process you guys have gone through, how far you've come. You know, and I think it's one of those bad parts of this community is that we always want to compare every single game that comes out to that mega game that is continuing to be the monster that it is over there with Madden football. But just talk about, you know, from where you came from to where you are right now, how excited you are for what's to come for this franchise in Access Football.
Yeah, so we are, man, in just 2 seasons of production, we've come pretty dang far, you know, from having to subcontract out everything to being able to do everything in-house. That's a feat in itself. And just the game's improved, but I mean, man, since I've joined the team, I think we've probably only moved about 10 to 15% of where we want to be, and that's very little. And I do not fault the consumer. I'm in their corner because that's my job as a director, is to listen to the consumer. And if they think our game sucks, well, then it probably sucks, you know. And we need to take that to heart, and we need to adjust, and we need to try to figure out if we can appease what they're talking about. And a lot of it is gameplay, and that's a lot of our focus this dev cycle will be on gameplay, making franchise mode deeper. And so I think the thing people don't realize is that we do listen. Like, you'll see me on YouTube comments, you'll see me on Twitter comments, you'll see me on Steam comments. I go through, and Dave has gone through, and Danny has gone through. We look for feedback. I've got guys DMing me about, you know, issues that I pass on to the dev team, and then, you know, we talk about the game. I talk to every person that talks or wants to talk or wants to give feedback, and even people who are trolled, like, oh, this game's Madden 02, and it's like, well, is it? Because here's a screenshot from Madden 02, and here's a screenshot of our game. Pretty different, bro, but thanks for the feedback. Anything else, you know? And so it is what it is, man. And they have every right to be pissed off. They have every right to be upset because it's their money. Again, we get it. And the difference between us and Madden is probably like 80% of our income goes back into the game, goes into buying more assets, goes into hiring more people, more horses to push the carriage further, farther, faster. And so for the future, for us, it's looking bright because we have not outpaced ourselves. We have not gone bigger than we can be. So we didn't just take your money and take out loans and try to grow unorganically. We've just grown as we can, and it's very natural, and it's something that we feel like we'll be able to sustain. And so you guys may have like a artificial timeline for us, but for us, we can keep going forever. You know, we feel like we'll keep going until we feel like we've accomplished phase 1. We'll move into phase 2, and we'll just keep creating new phases with new goals as we go. But I think where we're heading is we want to eventually turn this into an esports title. We want to make it a national product where people compete, and we give out prize money, and you know, but we also think of it this way. We want to be on the level of OTP, outside the park baseball. We want to be on their level as far as depth and simulation, but we also want to use our marketing dollars to push for an esports side of it, and create an atmosphere where people can compete. But the wrinkle is, you're not going to be competing on the sticks. If you want to do that, you'll just go play Madden, and you'll compete in their stuff. So we're going to do something that's going to challenge you intellectually, which means that eventually we're going to be moving to online play, and that's a phase 2 thing that we're talking about. Let's take care of phase 1 first, and again, no timeline set there. We'll be there until it's done. Then we will move into phase 2, and we will start exploring things like connected franchise mode, ranking systems, online gameplay, stuff like that. So that's the future for Axis. That's where we're heading. It's looking bright, but again, one step at a time. Got to walk before you can run.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you know, excites us so much over here in the Dynasty, is that, you know, you're not throwing out just rainbows and butterflies to this community. You're 100% real with us. This is where we're at. This is where we're trying to go. But these are the steps we got to take to get there. yeah, the grand scheme of things, like you talk about, is, hey, esports, online, connected franchise, all of those things sound great. But if we try and do those right now, we're just going to end up flopping, and we're not going to ever have the game that we want. So,
I look back to when we were, the community was clamoring for customization, and they're like, we just want to be able to build this, this, and this, and this, and this. And then I joined the team, and I'm like, well, what's good? What is this good for if the game sucks, right? Like, oh, great, you could have a 64 team league, but your game still sucks, And so, I kind of, if we don't get around to providing customization that people want, blame me for it, because it's me. Danny and Dave, they have the heart for the community, and they're like, we want to give them everything that they want. And it's like, guys, no.
Right. We got to be smart about it, but we got to improve certain things. So yes, customization is, that's all great. But if, like you say, if the customization is there, but the gameplay sucks, how long are people really going to be engaged with customizing certain things?
Yeah, we've definitely focused. My number one goal is gameplay and then replay value. If I can give you a franchise experience that draws you back in, and a lot of it's revolving around what I would call like a real world. Like, that's where we're heading with think depth of like NBA 2K19's My GM mode, right? Where you can start out as a GM and then you can end up owning a team, and you go through winter meetings, and it's a living franchise mode that keeps you coming back, because you don't know what rule are they voting on that the AI is going to vote on that's going to screw my plans for the summer, and signing LeBron or whatever,
Right.
And it's that living dynamic that keeps you coming back in. But we're doing it with football, and that's kind of our goal. But we're thinking OOTP, we're thinking NBA 2K19 My GM mode, without all the VC, the virtual currency. We don't want to water that down, and really we don't want the franchise mode to be tied to microtransactions. So
right, and that's key. So guys aren't just out there, throwing $100 at it and building it faster than what the next guy's doing. But you talked about that in-depth franchise mode. So What does that entail when you think about in-depth franchise mode? What does that entail as far as you building your team on Access Football?
Yeah, so part of my job as a creative director is to understand the landscape that I'm operating in. Right. So that means I got to know what's happened in the past. I got to know what's happening currently, and I got to try to project where people are going for the future. So, whether it's me looking at Canuck games or me looking at EA, I've got to understand where we've been, where we are, and where the industry is moving towards. And that's my job as a creative director. And that's why I don't code, and that's why I don't do the art. And that's why, because I'm trying to navigate our company and help us grow. So what that means is I've gone back and said, wow, everybody loves ESPN 2K5. Okay, well, I need to go play that. And I played it, and I saw how deep it was, and I felt that like there were some areas that were really good, and I felt like there were some areas that were really bad and tedious that I would like to take out. And then, a guy that I've really followed closely, and I've even reached out to, is Deuce Douglas and his idea of connected franchise, because that guy's got a lot of great ideas. And so I've spent a lot of time following him. I've followed his series on YouTube. I follow him, and I want to see, because he's got a really good heartbeat on what the community wants. So I'm following him. And, I'm going back through, and I played NFL head coach 07. I played 09, and I said, what's great from this? What's tedious? Okay, let's take out the tedious and add the great parts in. One of the things that I really enjoyed was the bid system from 09, how you bid on free agents, and how you have to negotiate contracts. I never thought that part was tedious. What did I like from those games? I liked the scouting aspect. So what that means for our franchise mode is that I have gone back and looked at a bunch of games and said, what do I like about this? Now I need to try to get it in our game. And so and we're not just talking football games. I've gone back and played all the Sony baseball games because I wanted to see how they structured their franchises, how they handled the financial aspect of the franchise. So, I mean, you want to play a deep franchise mode where you have to worry about the peanut sales and your stadium seating, go play the show. I believe it's 13, and it's the last show where they actually give you that kind of depth. And so I want to introduce that into our franchise mode. And you know, people are talking about how funding is hard in our game, and you have to win a championship before you really feel like you have some cash. And it's like, good. Why should a shitty franchise be rewarded? Right? Like if you can't accumulate the talent, you're going to sit in tier 3. Well, then that's where you deserve to be, and you're going to sit in tier 3, and that's going to keep you coming back because you're like, damn it, I'm a tier 3 team, and I want to be tier 2 or tier 1. And it's like, well, get better, kid. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, figure it out. But to touch on the esports side of it is people talked, and we want to try to build on the mental state of the game, and that when we feel like by better going back through our playbooks and re-honing in on, you know, zone coverage, for example, is pretty weak in our game because zones are pretty atrocious. Going back through and figuring that out will make the player versus AI better, but it'll also make the AI coach mode better too, and it'll really add that depth in. And we want to challenge people strategically, and that's we want you to challenge you strategically with your finances, how you manage your team, how you manage your players and staff, and how you manage the day-to-day coaching stuff. And so we're working on a playbook editor where you'll be able to create plays both offense and defense, and that'll obviously transfer over to like any esports thing that we develop. So we're trying, man, but it's like, you know, again, we can only go as fast as the horses pull. So
all right, one more question in a segment.
Sure.
Access 19 for the Xbox. Do we have a date, time frame? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you guys are already working on getting that released. So do we know when Access 19 comes out for the Xbox?
So it'll be 18, even though it's being released in 19. Again, we're week to week with it. Every time we submit a build, if it passes, then it'll be on the shop, you know, within a week. If it fails, then, you know, then we'll submit it again next week once we fix everything. And so it's obviously a rolling date. You know, I would like to tell you that I was telling people by the end of December we'd have it in the store, and then, you know, we ran into a bunch of issues, and then I was like, all right, well, we'll shoot for the end of January, and then at the end of February. And so if it doesn't get there, it doesn't get there, and we're sorry. You know, it was our first year releasing. We had no idea we thought it was going to be cake when we passed cert with Xbox. We thought, well, it'll be just like Xbox, and that was the wrong answer because it wasn't. It was nothing like Xbox, and we didn't crack the code quickly. And it's our first year. It was our first time ever dealing with PlayStation, you know, and then a lot of people give a shit, but it's like, you know, well, we released on PC, and then we see a lot of people pirating our game on PC, and it's like, okay, well, you guys complain that we don't have enough money and it's our fault, and then the community's pirating our game. And so it's like, you guys wonder why doesn't Canuck Play release on PC? That's probably why, because of pirating, and mods and people hacking the game and changing it. And so
do you think once it comes out, or if it comes out, do you think now every game after that is going to be that much easier to get past that certification process, especially on the PlayStation side?
It's hard to tell because technology is always evolving. In theory, yes, right? Because it's like, you know, your favorite fishing water hole. Like, do I know where every log is? Sure. Well, if a storm comes, that log might have moved, and you got to navigate the fishing hole every time you throw your cast in, and you're gonna get snagged a lot, and you're gonna, you know, just unless you're using a bobber and sitting on top of the water, you know, you're gonna have trouble. So that's probably a terrible analogy. I'm just because I don't fish that much anymore, but
you're too busy for all of that.
Yeah, I think, well, and I live in the desert. There's not a lot of fishing spots out here, so but hey, it's 70 degrees, so I can't complain about that. Yeah, it's just we've now seen rumblings of the new technology, the new systems for both Xbox and PlayStation. I'm sure Nintendo's probably working on something. Every time we go into something new, there's always going to be something new that you have to try to tackle and master. And so I can't tell you that, I can't tell you next year's Xbox release will be easy, right? Because I don't know. We've made it and we're on there and it's fine, but I can't tell you that 19 isn't going to struggle, getting through certs. So in theory, yes, because our guys have been through the ringer one dev cycle now, and we're still going through the ringer with the PlayStation. Once we get through there, in theory, yes, it should be easier to go. They should understand the process. They should understand where each company is putting their magnifying glass. But it's an evolving thing. It's its own living entity. So,
all right, man. Tell the people where they can find you on social media. One of the guys that answers, if he don't answer you the same day, he's hitting you back the next morning, and that's what we love about Access Football is you're just up front with us. But where can they find you on Twitter, on YouTube, or your Twitch channel? Because you're on there quite a bit working as well.
Yeah, Twitch. Don't follow me on Twitch. I that's the one place I go where I don't do a lot of Axis work. So you can follow me on Twitter at JDRichards88, and then Axis Games and Axis Football. You can follow those handles as well. And Danny does a really nice job of interacting with people as they submit a problem or something like that. But if you just hit me up on Twitter, I generally get back. And if you don't, and you just post an angry tweet, then I'll eventually find it and I'll track you down. And so just do you, and I'll find you. All right?
Do you.
So, but if you want to find me, that's what
absolutely. Make sure you hit him up on Twitter. He loves this community. He has a great vision of what he sees franchise football to be, and we love his vision because everything that you talk about is exactly what we want. That scouting, that in-depth, to be involved with every piece of the process. You talked about peanut sales. Do the jerseys sell at the right price in the pro shop, or if I raise it $5 or $3, is the sales going to drop and I'm going to lose? Those are the things that we've been asking for in a connected franchise mode, and that's kind of where your vision is with Access Football. But you talked about it's a process, and that's really what I want guys to understand. This is a process. This is not, the vision is one day and then in 2 weeks, okay, we got the vision, we know what we're doing, here it is. It takes steps. It takes the feedback from the community to say, this is wrong, and y'all are working on it. But, man, I just appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. I see you're at the office working, trying to make some money to support the family. And so,
it's a mess back here. I apologize. You guys got to look at
about the mess.
My hazard zone here.
We all work, so we understand that. But, man, I appreciate you taking time out of the day to jump on. Always been a good guy for us here in the Dynasty, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll be here, man. Just hit me up.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, guys, that is JD Richards, the creative lead designer there for Access Football, always jumping on. Last segment of the show, Experts Thoughts, and we're going to talk about the MCS for a minute. We want to congratulate Pavin for winning the MCS over there with Madden 19, but the big thing is my good friend OSU got a chance to live commentate games there on EA Madden's Twitch, and he did such an amazing job. OSU killed it, and I've talked to OSU. I've talked to Bomber over there in the NBL. They're good friends of us here in the Dynasty. It was great to see one of our guys from Connected Franchise on that lead stage, calling games, and maybe bringing some light to us here in the franchise mode. Last Experts Thoughts. EA Play. The homie Xpert will be in the building as they release some new games for EA. I will be out in California again with the head commish, Dion, with Tone Dog, and some other guys from the Dynasty. But this is what we need from you. If you have things you'd like to see on the channel, if you've got questions for the developers, for key guys as we go out to EA Play, hit me up on Twitter at DML Experts Corner, and just let me know what you would like to see, some questions you'd like us to ask. We're going to try and do some things for the community and get those interviews. We'll talk to the NBL guys when we're out there. We'll talk to Clint, of course, Ben Miller when he's out there. But we appreciate the support we're getting. Again, shout out to the homie JD for jumping on. One of the best guys here in this community. Love any chance that I get to talk to him. We'll have him back on again when Access 19 drops on the Xbox and hopefully on the PlayStation. I know they're fighting for that So we'll talk again when Access 19 drops and see how it's going. But on behalf of the DML Network, it's your boy Xpert, and I'm out.